So let's bring in Cam Robinson, then the director of everything at Elite Prospects, who joins us weekly. How are you, friend?
I'm doing well. That might have been the best ad read I've ever seen. Like, I needed that star to go across the screen. The more you know, the true PPSA.
In radio, the term's called oral drool. Nobody does oral drool like Blake Price.
That's what I tried. Yeah.
Nailed it.
The goal. That's the goal. You know what will get people drooling is the Canucks trading veterans for assets.
Yeah, we have some meaty topics here, meat lovers topics to deal with. Cam, it seems like there's some activity around Elias Pettersson right now. What are you hearing, bro?
I mean, to be honest with you, I know I saw the report there too. Kind of behind closed doors and whispering around the league is that it's been going on for a little while. I think teams have been kicking the tires on him. You know, he's obviously not generating at the level that you would expect from a player making, you know, the amount of money that he is. But as of late, you know, he has been scoring goals. He's still quite strong defensively. You know, he is relatively young. There's a lot of boxes checked there for teams that are looking to improve their center depth and really like push into the playoffs. So, you know, for Carolina, we've long known that they've been interested in bringing Elias Pettersson for years. For years, they identified him before he even blew up that this could be a guy who could pop for 100 points. So, you know, I think Carolina, similar to last year, you know, they had 2 trade offers out there, one for Pettersson, one for Mikko Rantanen, and ended up going for the Rantanen trade. Is that I think that they have something going on like that right now too, where they maybe have similar packages out there to, you know, maybe 2 or 3 teams for a couple of big name players, and they're seeing what they can do. And they have the flexibility, the cap flexibility to do something like that. They also have assets that they can remove off their roster or top prospects and picks that they can feel comfortable moving out because the state that their organization is in right now, that they're looking to win a Stanley Cup. So they have a lot of creativity, a lot of flexibility, and a player like Elias Pettersson would obviously improve a team like the Carolina Hurricanes greatly. And for Vancouver, it's like, you know, do you look at just trying to get out from under that contract? Is it time to just really remove that entire old guard if you're going to rebuild completely? So it makes a lot of sense that they're listening and that there are a couple teams that are kicking the tires.
So we know Carolina also wants to get off the Jesperi Kotkaniemi contract. And while the Hurricanes do have cap space, that would work in terms of some salary balancing. But if
Svechnikov and Kotkaniemi is basically Pettersson on the nose.
Good shout. Good math on you, Blake. But of course, if the Canucks are trading Elias Pettersson, I mean, they're already center poor. I know Kotkaniemi can play there. In fact, he's playing right wing right now. But I'm not sure he fits the bill. Does that bring us back to former Kamloops Blazer Logan Stankoven, who they got in the Rantanen trade, Cam? Would he have to be a part from a Canucks perspective of any Pettersson deal?
Yeah, I've checked in on that Svechnikov idea, and I was told they don't have a lot of big bodies that play like him. So even when he was slumping and it looked like it's like, oh, maybe they just don't really have players like him on their roster. So I think that he's probably going to be tough for them to move off. But a guy like Stankoven, like you said, Matt, is that, you know, Vancouver, even if Kotkaniemi was part of that package, is that you'd need someone at least that could cosplay as a second line center for you. And that's not Kotkaniemi, but that could be Logan Stankoven, who, you know, is undersized, but they've had him playing in the middle of the ice. They've been really trying to get him to play the middle of the ice there in Carolina. Long term, he could fit that bill, and you know, that would be if he was part of that return. You know, if you could pull him and maybe a Bradley Nadeau or a first round pick or something like that for Pettersson, even at his expensive price tag right now, a cap hit, I think that would be something Vancouver would absolutely consider, because you'd be saving cash, you'd be getting younger assets, maybe draft picks or a prospect on top. So it's like that would facilitate that deeper, longer rebuild that they've seemed so allergic to. So if they made a move like that, I think that would be very telling for what the next steps are. But I'm dubious that would be the result.
We're asking our poll question what the recent uptick in Pettersson's play means to the fans. You can comment on that, but also what do you think management sees when they see Pettersson pretty good over 20 games, very good over 9 games? Do they get heartened that he's back and can be a part of the solution going forward, or do they think now is our time to get out from under? Knowing full well that he might flourish elsewhere, like he might return to being an 85-point player elsewhere here, Ken.
I mean, why not? Why not? The skill doesn't just dissipate like that. It's still in there. He has that ability to be beyond a point of game player. Like he could get back to that in the right situation with the right players. He could become a 40-goal, 100-point player again. I don't think there's any question. I think that that's what other teams think as well, too, is that sure, now when he's making 11-6 or whatever it is, now the risk is much higher to try to take on that and then hope that he becomes that. And same for Vancouver. So again, I think it just comes down to, what is the vision? Because if the vision is that we need to turn this thing around quickly, which is what they've been saying constantly, is that you hope that this run of play here, 10 goals in 20 games for Elias Pettersson, is that maybe this is signs of, he can be that guy this year through the back half, and maybe next year when we start to turn this thing around. But if the plan is like, hey, you know what? We have a bunch of guys that are pushing 30 that aren't contributing on this roster. We're at the bottom of the standings. We're not getting out of this hole anytime soon. Let's start peeling this off. And then it's like, okay, 10 goals in 20 games, whatever he's got in the last 9. Let's use that as a springboard to be like, Elias Pettersson's back. Let's push to make that move now. And that would be, like I said, that would be kind of that canary in the coal mine, that this is a longer term rebuild, which is what, most fans have an appetite for, I believe, at this point. And most, pundits would agree, is that this isn't something that can turn around quickly. You are going to have to do some deep cuts.
Brock Boeser. All the relevant same questions. What do the Canucks do with the man named Brock Boeser?
What can they do?
Yeah.
If he's got a no move and he's not willing to waive, I'm not sure.
Unless the player starts to buy in that greener pastures is what he needs too, because he probably does not enjoy the fact that he hasn't had a center like David Kampf. Come on. And you hope that Brock Boeser is able to find offense even with David Kampf, but honestly, if you're Brock Boeser, that's the easiest crutch. And I don't begrudge him for thinking this, if he does think this. But if I'm Brock Boeser, I'm looking at, hello, David Kampf. What?
Well, we should.
Mm-hmm. No, I was just going to say is that, there's things working against him. But we can be honest about Brock, is that he hasn't been a play driver really his whole career, right? That's not who he is. He is reliant on someone getting him the puck in those good scoring positions. He can facilitate too. He can set other guys up as well. That part of his game has really developed over the years. But, for him to be impactful, he's not the one driving the play. And so when you have a guy like David Kampf as your centerman, he's not driving the play either. He's not setting it up on a tee for you. And so that's going to affect him. But I mean, at the same time, you are making $7 million, your first year of that extension, it's like you should be able to find the back of the net at least a couple times in 20 games, right? So a little bit's on him too. Maybe he's dinged up and he's fighting through some stuff too, but it's just, like you said, Blake, is that, maybe he starts to look at it and be like, how many rebuilds am I going to have to go through with this organization before we actually win? Careers don't last forever. So maybe he would be open to a possibility of waiving that to the right situation, to the right team. It's just what kind of value is he going to have on the trade market right now too, especially how he's going, his age, his foot speed, and his contract. It's limiting.
Cam, things are not well with the New York Rangers. They are last place in the Eastern Conference. They have been a tire fire at home this year. 5-12-4, and don't score a lot of goals there. JT Miller was flat out of answers the other night, if you caught that post game, and there's a lot of heat on him, the new captain there. What do you envision for Alexei Lafreniere, the former first overall pick and a client once upon a time of Emily Castengay, the Vancouver Canucks assistant general manager back in her agent days? Sounds like the Rangers are looking towards a shakeup. Chris Drury, the heat is very hot right now. What are you envisioning? Is Lafreniere going to be on the market here?
Yeah, again, so just kind of this the whispers behind closed doors is that the team is obviously at a crossroads right now. And up until that Shesterkin injury, which as far as I know hasn't been released exactly the timeline on it, but if they shut him down for the year, that's curtains. You can't even pretend that they can climb out of that hole. With Shesterkin, maybe they could lie to themselves. And we know that they've been kicking the tires on Kiefer Sherwood. They've been looking at opportunities to buy, to look to improve their roster and really push into the playoffs round. So my understanding is that they're kind of making that decision right now. Is that, hey, do we just start selling assets? And if they do start selling assets, it's not just Artemi Panarin, who would, return a bushel for them and I think is still going to get absolutely paid in free agency. But it is Alexi Lafreniere. It is a kid like Braden Schneider. I think that they would look to move those type of pieces too. Now, they missed the boat on moving Lafreniere and getting a substantial return as a first overall pick, but we know that Vancouver has been interested in the past. Absolutely. I think that they were hoping to get him maybe in that JT Miller trade. I think that they've looked at a couple different ways to try to bring him in, and I'm sure Casson Gay has a big role in that too. So for Vancouver, to look at Lafreniere as a reclamation project, that can make a lot of sense. Now, what I come back to is that if the Rangers are selling, what is Vancouver giving them that they're interested in that Vancouver could part with, right? Like if the Rangers were buying and they were like, hey, we need to upgrade so we can get better, it's like, yeah, let's move Lafreniere. And then I guess maybe Vancouver could try to sell them on like, hey, how about a Brock Boeser? How about a guy who scored 30, knows how to find the back of the net, put him on a power play, him and JT had worked well together. Maybe you could make that sale, but I don't think that makes a lot of sense if the Rangers are looking to bottom out like Vancouver, because Vancouver needs to hold on to all their young assets.
Connor Garland, same idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the American wingers, I mean, you'd think that fits well into what Drury likes to get tempted by.
What American winger wouldn't want to play in New York
Well,
City
honestly,
and be a Ranger?
Absolutely.
Right?
There's a little bait on the hook there for sure. Yeah.
Staying in the Gotham area, the New Jersey Devils have quite a pickle on their hand, if I can quote Jim Rutherford. A lot of the focus there is Dougie Hamilton, who was going to be shut down and not play because Kovacevic was back and blah, 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 looking for a trade. And yet Hamilton plays last night. But
They've got bad contracts. They've got a couple.
Well, the other guys, the guy they were trying to unload to create the cap space for Quinn Hughes was Andre Palat. And you wonder if they're still looking to just flat unload this contract that's got one more year at $6 million left. Cam, is this a good opportunity for the Canucks to quote unquote weaponize cap space and take on a bad asset with an attachment from the New Jersey Devils?
I mean, absolutely. That's what good, bad teams do. And I think that this would be a terrific opportunity for Vancouver, right? Is that you're like, hey, let me take that anchor off of your hands. And, it's not just the 1 year. It's not just saving them the cap space this year. I believe he's got another year on that deal too. And it's an anchor. And so it's like, yeah, I'll take it and toss your first round pick over, or toss me a second and a good prospect, and we'll get them off your hands so that you can use that cap space to get better and push, because this is a team, New Jersey, that they had expectations and they're not meeting them, and they have bad contracts and they're going to have to pay to get out of them. So for Vancouver, they don't have a ton of cap space, but maybe they can create some here in the coming weeks leading up to that deadline. And then absolutely, I think that would be a terrific opportunity. And if they don't do it, someone else probably will. A smart, bad team will take that opportunity to be like, hey, yes, we want this. Maybe they're even giving New Jersey a player, someone that they covet as well. It's like, and we'll take Palat, and we'll take your first, and we'll take this guy. You're a good prospect off your hands, and that return for their player that they're moving out becomes so much more because of it. So yes, I think Vancouver should absolutely be looking at something like that.
And it's sort of well timed out too. He's got that extra year, which means you should be able to get more in the deal.
Mm-hmm.
And again, everybody is pretty safe in assuming the Canucks will not be competitive again next year, and then you get the $6 million of space coming off the books as well. So world becomes the Canucks oyster.
Yeah, the one thing there is that the Canucks do not have that sort of salary cap space now, so I don't know if Jersey would have to hold on the player or there had to be salary going back. But it gets easier and easier as you get creep towards trade deadline, right? Because then the cap hit becomes even less and less prorated, less money to take on. Let's turn our attention to draft, Cam, because we noted the NHL Central Scouting rankings out yesterday. I know you're busy surveying teams right now, as well as the fine folks at Elite Prospects getting together to put out your next ranking, your next list. Tell us, what are you hearing right at the top in terms of Ivar Stenberg and Gavin McKenna?
Yeah, I mean, not every team. So I have 10 teams that'll submit their list to me for the scout poll that I try to mimic Bob McKenzie's list there. And it certainly seems like Ivar Stenberg has taken over the pole position. And I mean, justifiably so. He was significantly better. I think, didn't have the same amount of points as Gavin did, but as you look at play and transferable play, he was better. And then, he's popped right back to Frölunda, scored the game-winning goal in Champions Hockey League play on just a wicked wrister. It kind of looked like Nikita Kucherov on that power play too. So, I think Ivar has definitely moved up, and he's solidifying himself at the top right now, mid-season here. The big question will be, is like, does Gavin even go two? So there's one team that has him outside of the top three so far that's submitted to me too. And I think that we're starting to see that now. There is going to be maybe not knee-jerk reactions after, his performance at the World Juniors, because I don't think it was bad, but I did think it, like I said last week, it raised more questions than answers. And I think there are some teams that would be very cautious in taking him in the top 2 or 3, because, a kid like Keaton Verhoff is still sitting there too. A guy like Chase Reed is going to be there, where teams are going to look at it and be like, we can project these more easily than taking the risk on a kid who maybe could be a 100-pointer in the NHL, but he's going to be a soft 100-pointer, and he might not be a 100-pointer either, right? And now you're really second guessing. So I think right now, I've said it a few times, is the best place to pick is probably number 2. Is that if Gav goes 1, you take Ivar Stenberg. If Stenberg goes 1, well, you probably just take Gavin at number 2 there and be fine with it and hope for the best.
There are a couple of wild cards out there. One of them was the best natural center, we think, in Tynan Lawrence, or best capable center in Tynan Lawrence, who makes the jump from the USHL to Boston University here to start the new year. We said yesterday, it's a really small sample size, but he didn't exactly arrive at BU and burst down the door. No points in the first 3 games. Have you heard anything about his 3-game debut here for BU?
It's interesting because, I was curious that he stayed in the USHL. He stayed with Muskegon after what he did last year, winning the championship, winning playoff MVP. He did everything he could at that level. And then that level, kind of took a step back in skill-wise because they lost a lot of talent to the CHL. And so I thought it was interesting that he stayed there to do that anyways. And then, quite honestly, he didn't pop. Like, the flashes were far greater and more frequent in his draft -1 than they were early on the year. And yes, he was dealing with some injuries to start the year. But, now it's a risk. Now he took a big risk going to BU midseason because there's not a lot of games left on the schedule, not a lot of runway to get your feet underneath you. And that's a big jump. That's a level jump up from the USHL to college hockey. And so, the Muskegon anyways put it out there that they were happy to support him in his goal to, go first overall. And yes, by doing that, if he could jump into college hockey and really prove, outscore a guy like McKenna, really look like he belongs at that level, he could push himself into that conversation. But on the flip side, if you struggle to keep up with the pace, with the, find chemistry early, it's like you only have a handful of games to do it. You could drop your stock. And so again, is that, I have some teams that are still believers in him as the top center in this draft, and that he could elevate into that kind of conversation for the top 3. But I also have teams that are talking about like, hey, maybe this guy's more, closer to 10. And the name to watch is Caleb Maholtra as being the top center in this class.
Yes, he has got some helium, Manny's son. Jeff Merrick has been chronicling that with us each and every week. And when it's all said and done, he would not be surprised if Caleb is a top 10 or a top 5 even.
He could,
draft
for sure.
pick. Yeah, well, play center. People will love the pedigree. And he's got a chance to lead the OHL in scoring at 17. It's just nuts. Lastly, on the draft file, Cam, 5 Vancouver Giants were rated by Central Scouting. We have talked about these young men before. Both look like they're going to be first-rounders. The right-shot defenseman Ryan Lynn from Richmond. The forward from Penticton, Mathis Preston, who just came over in a dub trade deadline deal from Spokane. I sometimes feel like the Vancouver Giants are as cursed as the Vancouver Canucks, and yet they've both gotten hurt. They're going to miss some time. Tell us how this is going to affect, if at all, their draft stocks.
Well, for Lynn, I mean, he was on a bit of a heater too. Like, he was cooking. He was leading all CHL draft eligible defensemen in points. The goals are starting to come. He just got the C strapped onto his chest there too. Like, things were moving in the right direction for Ryan Lynn. So that's tough. That's tough that he's out. I've been told it's going to be about 4 weeks. Maybe up to 6 weeks if they don't rush him back. Preston has had a difficult season. I would say he's had a difficult season finding his offensive game, finding chemistry there. It sounded like he maybe wanted out of Spokane, so he got his wish. He's in Vancouver, and I think Vancouver was happy to facilitate that because he has such incredible upside. And it's also like, hey, Ryan, maybe don't consider going to the NCAA next year. Maybe we'll bring in a guy like him, and we'll bring in Joe Ginlin. We'll have some young guys that we can push towards next year and maybe make a run. So I like the pickup. So it's really unfortunate that Preston won't have an opportunity to really find that chemistry and get situated in Vancouver because, again, it sounds like he's going to be out probably 4 to 6 weeks too with the lower body injury. But the name of the game is that's going to put a ding in both of their seasons. It's going to be hard to come back from. I think Lynn has showed enough already. He'll come back. He'll have regular season games. And then it's both of them. We're looking at Slovakia. We're looking at the U18s there in Bratislava and Trenčín, is that they've got to show up and play big roles for that Team Canada. And I think that they will, especially Lynn. And Lynn, I don't really think he can do much else to prove himself this year. He's shown everything he's capable of. He's upped his offensive game. He's always had a really strong defensive game. It's just a matter of if teams are willing to bite on him at his size and think that, yes, this is for sure a top 12 pick, or if he's going to fade closer to 20, which would be fantastic for Vancouver if they could land a kid like him with Minnesota's pick.
I was just going to ask, is there any chance the Canucks could get him with their second
absolutely
first round pick? I think Preston was already in that neighborhood, and you wonder whether the injury to Lynn drops him.
Any reviews of Braden Coots as a Raider? Have you heard any feedback on that?
It was awesome last night.
4 points in 3 games now.
Yeah, and I expect those points to keep rolling. It's like I said last week, that's a very good team, and he's going to fit seamlessly in there and play loads of minutes in different roles, protecting leads, trying to get up and on 1-2 when they're down. So he'll be used very well, and a lot of minutes out there, and I think his numbers will keep generating up too. It'll be a good spot for him.
You're the best. Thank you for this. We look forward to your next. Oh, boy, McKenna at 4 for one team. We look forward to you publishing that, Cam, and the rest of the work you do at Elite Prospects. It's outstanding. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it, boys. We'll talk next week.